For ordinary work as a store clerk or a cleaning woman, but Annie could not picture herself standing behind a counter selling candy to her former students or scrubbing the floors in their parents' homes. She was too proud, and the pay she would earn too little. What Annie needed was a plan, a way to strike it rich and put her money worries behind her for good. Days passed by, and the widow's small savings grew even smaller. Try as she might, Annie could not come up with an idea until one warm July evening when she returned to her room with a newspaper. The front page carried a story about the large number of tourists visiting Niagara Falls that summer. Annie had visited the falls as a child and could remember clearly the thundering waters and crowds of people drawn to them. Holding her father's hand, she had been hypnotized by the sight and sound. Suddenly, like a cork popping from a champagne bottle, an idea came to her. She would find fame and fortune by doing something no one in the world had ever done before. Annie Taylor would go over Niagara Falls in a barrel. The next morning, filled with excitement, Annie began planning her ride. She knew no ordinary barrel would do. Something special was called for. Annie drew a picture of a barrel that would suit her needs, a barrel that would be incredibly strong and just the right size for its passenger. She took her drawing to a workshop where men built barrels, mostly for holding things such as pickles and beer. The foreman of the shop had never seen a barrel like the one Annie had drawn, and asked what it was for. When she shared her plans to ride in the barrel over Niagara Falls, the man looked at Annie in disbelief. He handed the drawing back and informed her his shop would build no such thing. The idea was madness, he told her. If she wanted to kill herself, she'd have to do it on her own. Annie went back to her room and continued to dream of the fame and fortune that would be hers once she'd conquered the falls. She looked at her drawing and was certain she would be safe, no matter how violent the ride. 3 days later, Annie called on the barrel maker again and convinced him she was not crazy. If he built the barrel according to her design, the widow assured him, she could survive the fall without injury. The foreman agreed to do it and put his 3 best men on the job. Annie worked alongside them, picking out each piece of the thick white oak they used. When their work was done, they had a barrel that was 4.5 feet high, with iron bands wrapped around it, and weighed more than 160 pounds. The workmen agreed it was a very sturdy thing indeed. It might even go through the falls in one piece. That didn't mean, of course, that anyone inside would survive. Annie understood the problem. You can put an egg inside a can and let it drop to the floor. The can may not be damaged, but it's a different story for the egg. That was why Annie made the barrel just big enough to hold herself and a large number of pillows. She also fastened to the inside metal handles to grab onto and a leather belt to strap herself in securely. As Annie put the finishing touches on the barrel, she began planning her trip. She needed a manager, someone to go to Niagara Falls ahead of her and stir up interest among the local newspaper reporters and tell them about the amazing Lady Daredevil who would be arriving soon to conquer the mighty falls. She hired Frank Russell, a Bay City man who had worked at carnivals and fairs. When they first met, Frank Russell was surprised by Annie's appearance. She looked exactly like the aging charm school teacher that she was, and nothing at all like the death-defying daredevil she was determined to become. He asked if she wasn't too old for such a difficult and dangerous adventure. Even a much stronger and fitter person stood practically no chance.